Good morning, student. I am Suraj Kumar. I am here come up with your chapter 1, part B book of your NCERT textbook, that is population, distribution, density, growth and composition. This is chapter 1 of part B book, that is India, People and Economy. In this chapter, in the last class we are reading about the population composition. There we already seen about rural urban composition. Then we had read about the linguistic composition, where we had read about the different classification of modern Indian languages on the basis of 4 families, sub-families, etc. Then we had read about the religious composition of population in India. There we had read about religious majority, religious minority, community. Then we had seen about the relation between religion and landscapes. Today we are going to start about the composition of the working population. The population of India, according to their economic status, is divided into 3 groups. Mainly main workers, marginal workers and non-workers. So what it all mean about? Main workers, you can see it here in the box provided here. Main workers is a person who works for at least 183 days or 6 months in a year. Means people who works for more than 183 days in a year or more than 6 months in a year are put under the category of main worker. Marginal workers are those workers who has worked less than 183 days or 6 months in a year. And the third category is non-workers. So those people who are unemployed or not looking for any type of job right now. So that will come under the category of non-workers. In India, the proportion of workers, both main and marginal, that is the proportion of population who loves to work at least, that is the proportion of worker who loves to work more than 6 months in a year or even less than 6 months, they are ready to work, is approximately around 40% of the total population of India. This figure is according to 2011 census, and this 40%, that means that only 40% of the total population loves to work in terms of main worker, or maybe they work as a main worker of more than 6 months in a year, or maybe they work as a marginal worker, that is overall working days is less than 6 months or less than 183 days. But overall they together, the main worker and marginal workers together constitutes only 40% of the total population according to 2011 census. So this result in leaving a vast majority of about approximately 60% of the population as non-workers. So approximately 60% of India's population are not working. That means they are dependent or they are not interested to work right now. This indicates the overall economic status in which there is a large proportion of dependent population, further indicating possible existence of large number of employed or underemployed people. So overall this 60% is showing that we had a more and more dependent population, or further it also indicates the possible existence of that large number of people are unemployed or not willing to employ or not willing to work. So this is very alarming thing for India. Now the next question here is given a question is there. What is work participation rate? So what is work participation rate? Work participation rate is the number of people employed or eager to employ. That is the number of people actually working or the number of people eager to working, means wanted to work, or number of people searching for the job. So that is called the work participation rate, means actually how many numbers of people are working in a particular country and how many were demanding or searching for a job. These both type of people including together constitutes वर्क पार्टिसिपेशन रेट. सो किसी भी कंट्री में कितने लोग वर्क कर रहे हैं एक्चुअली में और रेस्ट कितने लोग जॉब सर्च कर रहे हैं, या जॉब कर रहे हैं या जॉब सर्च करने वाले, दोनों लोग मिल करके कंस्टिट्यूट करते हैं वर्क पार्टिसिपेशन रेट का. द प्रपोर्शन ऑफ वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन ऑफ अ स्टेट and union territory in India shows a moderate variation. So there is variation here too in terms of working population. So the proportion means how many people loves actually to work and how many people are seeking a job, or how many rather are not looking or not working, have a huge variation, huge spatial variation throughout the country. And that variation is from about approximately 40% here, see it, 39.6% in a state like Goa, to about 49.9%, approximately 50% in UTs of Daman and Diu. So there is a huge variation. The states with larger percentage of worker are Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur and Meghalaya. Just look at these states. These states, Himachal Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Sikkim is there, Andhra Pradesh is there, Karnataka is there, Arunachal, Nagaland, Manipur, Meghalaya. Is these states or these areas are developed or industrialized? No. If you look at closely, then you will find that these are the states mainly working in the primary sector. Here main type of working culture or the employment is in primary and secondary sector. So they are not the industrial hub or manufacturing hub. So mainly primary sector, not even the secondary sector. On the other hand, UTs like Dadar and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu have higher work participation rate. So these UTs, small UTs on the western side of India, has comparatively higher work participation rate as comparison to all these bigger states of India. It is understood from these contexts, especially in terms of country like India, that work participation rate tend to be higher in the area of lower level of economic development. So it shows itself that this trend or these examples of different states and UTs itself showing is that if you look at the relation between the work participation rate as comparison to the developed economy or developed portion or developed state of a particular country, then it has an inverse relation. Means however or whatever economy or the part of a country is under the developed or industrialized zone, those are having a less number of वर्क पार्टिसिपेशन रेट. सो व्हाट इज शोइंग कि जहाँ पे जितना ज़्यादा डेवलपमेंट होगा वहाँ वर्क पार्टिसिपेशन रेट कम होगा, और जिस भी रीजन में ज़्यादा वर्क पार्टिसिपेशन रेट है एट दैट प्लेस और दैट एरिया, वहाँ पे वो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट कंपेरेटिवली लोअर साइड पे होगा, हैव अ लोअर लेवल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट. क्यों ऐसा, क्यों ऐसा बताइए. दिस इज ओनली बिकॉज, देखिए अगर कोई भी एरिया अंडर डेवलप्ड है ना, तो वहाँ पे क्या ज़रूरत होती है, लोग जो है अंडर डेवलप्ड एरिया में मेनली पीपल यूज टू वर्क फॉर देयर सब्सिस्टेंस, और वहाँ का जो इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी भी होगा दैट विल बी लाइक नियर सब्सिस्टेंस इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी. व्हाट इट मीन, इट मीन वहाँ पे लोग जो भी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी करेंगे या जो भी वर्क करेंगे दैट इज़ फॉर कंजम्पशन. मीन्स they will not create that much ample that it will be exported or traded to different parts. So ये एरिया जो है यहाँ पे मेनली कंजम्पशन के लिए वर्क होगा. सो जितने भी लोग होंगे, जो भी लोग एम्प्लॉयड होंगे, दे विल वर्क मैनुअली इंस्टेड ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजिकल uses, like in case of mechanized industrial region of developed part of India or developed region और states of India. तो जहाँ डेवलपमेंट होगा वहाँ मैकेनाइजेशन होगा, जहाँ मैकेनाइजेशन होगा देयर द वर्क पार्टिसिपेशन रेट, लोगों को एम्प्लॉयमेंट कम मिलेगा, मशीन ज़्यादा वर्क करेगी, तो मशीन ज़्यादा वर्क करेगी, देन वर्क पार्टिसिपेशन रेट वुड बी ऑन द लोअर साइड. ऑन द रिवर्स, जहाँ पे लेस डेवलपमेंट होगा देयर machines are less, so more number of people get employed, and main type of employment is related, main type of economic activity is related with subsistence type, and there more number of people get employment. So overall work participation rate should be on the higher side. The occupational composition of India's population, which actually means engagement of individual in activities like farming, manufacturing, trade, services, or any kind of professional activity, shows a large proportion of primary sector worker compared to the secondary and tertiary sector. So it's saying that in a country like India, the occupational composition shows a trend of a large proportion of primary sector worker as comparison to the secondary and tertiary sector. Why it is so? Because India is a developing country, it is not that much industrialized, developed. So here the trend is that the overall work participation rate would be on the higher side, and mainly people or the working group are working in the primary sector. So more number of people were employed in the primary sector, and more number of workers are in primary sector compared to secondary and tertiary sector. About or approximately 55%, that is 54.6% of the total working population are cultivators and agricultural laborers. Means out of total population, approximately 55% of the population or the citizen of a developing country like India, or especially this is the figure of India itself. So in a country like India or in India, approximately 55% of the total working population are mainly engaged in primary sectors and are mainly cultivators and agricultural laborers. Rather, only 3.8%, approximately 4% are engaged in secondary sector, that is manufacturing sector, and are engaged in household industries. Whereas rest, approximately 42%, were engaged in other activities, like rest 42% are other workers including non-household industry, trade, commerce, construction, and repair or other services like service sectors. So here you can see that most of the people are engaged in primary sector, mainly in agriculture and allied services. There are very few in number or very few in percentage of workers who are engaged in secondary or manufacturing sector, and rest are other workers which get engaged in other type of activities like repair work, trade, some sort of commerce activity, non-household industrial activity, service sector, etc. So as far as occupation of a country's male and female population is concerned, means in that also here you have seen that mainly concentration of worker is in primary sector than the other workers, and very least in manufacturing and secondary sector or production. So this is the overall composition of India's or Indian workers or Indian workforce. Out of it, if you look at the proportion or ratio of the male to the female, you will find that male workers outnumber female workers in all the three sectors respectively. You can see it through the figure 1.4 and table 1.4 as well. This is the figure and this is the table 1.4. So the sheet is showing the sectoral composition of workforce in India, especially in terms of three sectors of economy in respect to male and female composition or proportion or percentage. So let's see it. Categories is there: primary workers working the primary, secondary and tertiary activity, total number of workers in terms of absolute number percent wise, then in terms of percentage out of total workers how many are male and how many are females. So from here you can look into the proportional or ratio wise arrangement of male to female. So just see primary workers, approximately 26.5 crore of people out of total working strength of India or total working population of India. Approximately 26 crore of working population, which is 54.6% of the total workforce or total workers of India are engaged in primary sector. And out of these 26 crore, 16 crore, approximately 16.5 crore is male concentration, and rest 9.75 crore is the female concentration of population. So you just see it, the difference in the figure of male to female. Then if you look into the secondary sector, in that also approximately 1.83 crore people are engaged, approximately near to the 2 crore of people in India is engaged in the secondary sector, which constitutes approximately 4%, 3.8% of the total workers of India. Out of that, approximately 97 lakh is male worker, approximately equal to 1 crore, and rest 85 lakh is female. Here too you can see that male outnumbered female. In the third or the other category or the tertiary sector, approximately 20 crores people were engaged in India, which constitutes around 41.6 or approximately 42% of the total workers of India. Out of it, 15 crores were male and only just 4.37 crore are the females. Here also you can see men hugely outnumbered females. So this is all about the sectoral composition primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, and in that also the respective proportion of male to female, where in all the three sectors you had already seen that male hugely outnumbered females. Here in this figure 1.4 also you can see it, occupational structure according to 2011 census. Here this dark bubble is indicating about cultivators, slight lighter light color is about agricultural laborers, then zigzag is showing about household industrial workers, and rest blank white about other workers. This is the occupational structure, sectoral occupational structure according to 2011 census in terms of multiple bar graph, and this diagram is showing with respect to different states of India. So state wise composition, let's consider our own states, Bihar itself. So here in Bihar you just see it, this is on the righter side, the rightmost bar graph is showing Bihar. So here in Bihar approximately 20% of the worker or the workforce is cultivators. So approximately 20% of the workers is cultivator, rest 22 approximately 67 means if you just out of whole around 75%, out of 75 if you just subtract the 20% who are engaged or who are cultivators, the rest are bounded laborers. So bounded laborers shows the picture of approximately 45%, then just 3 to 4% in household industrial worker showing through zigzag cross line, and rest 21 to 22% where the workers engaged in other activity including service sector. So here just I explained only one state about our state. Same way you can see the composition of different states of India showing occupational structure sector wise according to 2011 census. Here this is paper cutting, and it's also showing about the gender discrimination in India better than neighbors. So it's not about India, it's comparison of Indian sex ratio with the other states of or other neighboring country of India. Here according to GDI rank means gender related development index rank. GDI rank is gender related development index rank, which is given by the UNDP. It is showing that India is at the 96th position out of 177 country. So GDI rank is 96 out of 177 countries, and here you can see it that India is having a better rank than Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, but India is lagging behind China and Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is the surprise element. So here I want to say you that this is the overall index which looks into different factors like India is behind Sri Lanka, but Sri Lanka was always the ranking heights, but here you can look at that there is always a ranking height more than it reveals about the gender equality. Why it is so? It is so because Sri Lanka soars ahead on most count when it comes to women political participation. Then Sri Lanka is lagging behind. Sri Lanka is behind most of the country in the region, and so is India. So maybe on different sectors, like on different fronts, like Sri Lanka is having a higher women literacy rate, Sri Lanka is having a higher women health index and other things. But when we look into the participation of women in the political organization or the political parties throughout different countries, then we will see that Sri Lanka is lagging behind all the different neighboring states as shown above. So overall it is okay. This index is given, India has 96 rank, but in many sector Sri Lanka or the higher ranked GDI countries than India also lags behind India. So overall this is the index, but there are many factors in it. Now the next topic is all about promoting gender sensitivity through Beti Bachao Beti Padhao. So what is showing that is saying that the division of the society into male, female and transgender is believed to be natural and biological. So it is on two count. Naturally these things, male, female and transgenders, are different, and biologically too. So by body structure, these three division of the society, three part of the society are different from each other, and by nature as well. So this is okay, but today's social constraint and role assigned to the individual are reinforcing these things mainly based on biological differences. Nowadays biological differences become the basis of social discrimination, differentiation and exclusion. So more or less with nowadays we are neglecting the natural constraint of division between the male, female and transgender. More or less it is taking the shape of the biological differences, and that is the main biological differences now become a main reason for, or main differences on the basis of which the social discrimination or differentiation or exclusion are taking place. So exclusion of over half of the population become a serious issue, and in the long run it is going to handicap to a developing country like India, and it need to be solved out, or it need to be minimized to develop the society, or to become a society to be a civilized society. So in any civilized society, the exclusion of half of the population is very dangerous. Women's or the females constitutes nearly approximately half of our population, and to neglect such a huge part or the ratio or the percentage of the population is very detrimental to any economy, whether it is a developing or a developed or any kind of economy. Especially in the developed economy, they are not doing such kind of discrimination or exclusion of half of any part of the society, any major proportion of the society, and there is no such discrimination over female in the developed country. But it is a serious problem in the developing and underdeveloped country. So this can be acknowledged even by United Nations Development Program, and Human Development Report and United Nations Development Program has given or mentioned that if development is not engendered, it is endangered. What it means? It means that कि अगर डेवलपमेंट, इफ डेवलपमेंट इज नॉट इन जेंडर, अगर ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट नहीं हो रहा है, अगर आप जेंडर के बेसिस पे डिस्क्रिमिनेशन कर रहे हैं, तो ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट जो है वो डेंजर में है. मीन्स यू हैव टू लुक और यू हैव टू डेवलप्ड कंसिडरिंग all the sector of the society including women's, otherwise your economy is in danger in a long run. You cannot neglect or cannot minimize such a huge components or the part of our society which is approximately half of our total population. And this definition is given under Human Development Report of United Nations Development Program in 1995. So discrimination in general and gender discrimination in particular is a crime against humanity. It is said under this report. So you cannot neglect such a huge population. So all efforts were given or provided by different programs and policy, by the different programs and policies of the government. Efforts are made to address the denial of opportunity of education, unemployment and political reservation, low wages. So such kind of discrimination is mainly in the society against the women or the weaker section of the society. Here we are reading about the mainly the women's. So discrimination like they are not given a proper education or proper opportunity in the employment, proper representation in a politics or political representation in parliament or the state legislature. For the same type of work they are paid, mainly women are paid lower wages. So many legislation has came up, society is changing. Society which fails to acknowledge and take effective measures to remove such discrimination in the past cannot be treated as a civilized one. Nowadays everyone is looking into it. Government of different countries are taking major steps. Government of India has duly acknowledged it, also duly acknowledged the adverse impact of this discrimination against the half of the percentage of population of India, and that's why government has launched a campaign like Beti Bachao Beti Padhao. There are many type of legislation also came up in form of sexual harassment at the workplace or many initiative that reservation to the women, especially in the parliament or in the local self-government. 1/3 of the seats are reserved for the women as well in our states like in Bihar. In any government related vacancy, 1/3 of the seats are reserved for women. This is passed by recent government of Nitish Kumar. So all the steps are taken by different states and government to uplift the half of the proportion or population of our country or our society, so that they get also uplifted and get reached into the mainstream of the society, and overall society will get the benefit of the untapped huge population or resource of the world or India. So this is very untapped resource. We need to increase it and look into it The number of females workers is relatively high in the primary sector. Why? Because household worker used to work over there. Recent steps taken by the different governments and the policies and plans implemented by different states government has been responsible for some sort of improvement in the work participation of women in secondary and tertiary sector as well. It is important to note that the proportion of workers in agriculture sector in India shows a decline over the last few decades. As we see it here, that according to 2001 census, in the primary sector we are approximately 58.2% of the India's population are directly or indirectly dependent in agriculture and allied sector according to 2001 census, which is reduced to 54.6% in 2011, and nowadays approximately 51 or 52% of the India's population is directly or indirectly dependent upon primary and agriculture sector. And this is happening because of changing of the mindset of the people, increasing urbanization and industrialization throughout the country. And because of this, consequently the participation rate in the secondary and tertiary sector has registered a uplift or a leap. There is an increasing trend in secondary and tertiary sector, and this all indicates a shift of development, shift of dependence of worker from farm based occupation to non-farm based ones. So this changes has indicated a shift and showing a shift of dependence of worker from farm based or agriculture and allied related occupation to a non-farm or non-agricultural and allied type of work or based work. And this all is showing a sectoral shift in an economy of a country like India. Spatial variation of work participation rate means over the different states or different areas in terms of work participation rate as per the different sector in the country is shown in appendix 5 and 5a, and this spatial variation is also very wide. For instances, the states like Himachal Pradesh, Nagaland have very large share of cultivators because they are mainly working or such states economy is mainly based on agriculture. On the other hand, states like Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, West Bengal and Madhya Pradesh have higher proportion of agricultural laborers. So there in case of Andhra Pradesh and there in case of Himachal Pradesh and Nagaland, they are mainly cultivators, means farm owner itself doing cropping or farming. Here in case of other these states, mainly the employment of the workers is like a agricultural laborers, means they used to move or they used to work in the farmland of other rich farmers. The highly urbanized area like the case of NCR Delhi, Chandigarh, or the huge industrial center of or the area of Pondicherry have a very high proportion of worker being engaged in other activities other than primary and secondary, and this indicate not only the availability of limited farming land but also a large scale urbanization and industrialization requiring more worker in non-farming sector. So this trend here of urbanized center is not only about that this the region is not only the unavailability of agricultural land, but also it also depicts to the or it also depend upon the mindset of the worker, because the people living in these area or engaged in these area are mainly urbanized or industrialized or skilled people. So large scale urbanization and industrialization are the reason for such a shift from primary to tertiary kind of economic activity in these cities of Delhi, Chandigarh and Pondicherry. So that's it. I think I already finished this chapter. There are few activities like bar graphs is there, pie chart is there. So these are 2 3 pie charts and bar graphs are there. So that will help you guys in your practical exam, geography practical exam of geography practical final exam. So you need to practice these things: how to make bar graph, how to make pie chart, how to do or how to plot different things over the map. These things are very important. You have to continuously look into it and work over it. Okay, bye bye. See you in the next class. Next class I will start with next chapter. Bye bye.